everyone, this is Sandra from Cherry Heart and I'm here with a tutorial on how I make the 2-colour squares for my crochet star quilt. So you may have seen this quilt I'm making at the moment, and I'm making these star blocks in 3 different colours. I've got greys, I've got some blues and I've got some pink as well, and they're made up of these 2-colour squares just joined together. So when it comes to making these 2-colour squares, you're obviously going to need 2 different colour yarns, and I find what works best is when you haven't got too much of a contrast between the 2 colours, because you're carrying the yarn round underneath the stitches as you go. Where there's a darker colour, you can just see that yarn being carried underneath the pail. And again, you can a little bit with that pink one, but once you get to sort of paler colours, it's much harder to see. The other thing to know is that using a smaller size hook than you normally would for the yarn you are using can be quite helpful with these squares as well. It helps tighten things up, keeps those stitches nice and tight, and that helps cover up that carried yarn as well. In this case, where I'm using the fingering weight yarn, normally I would use a 3.5 hook for that, but for this I'm using a 3, and I've got a double knit yarn here, a DK weight yarn. Normally I would use a 4 hook for that. That would be the recommended hook size for this yarn, but for this I'm going to go down to a 3.5. Just to tighten things up a bit. So it will depend on your tension for what hook you want to use, but it might be worth just having a little play with different hook sizes and to see how, you know, which is the neatest version you can get. So if you're normally looser, you may have to go down a couple of hook sizes. If you're normally tighter, you may find you're fine anyway. So just have a little experiment with that and see which works best for you. I have a video showing how I make my solid granny squares, which I made as part of my Battenberg blanket tutorial. I'll pop the link for that up here on the right now, and in the down bar below. So if you're not familiar with the way I make my solid granny squares, or anything I'm doing looks a bit different to the pattern you're used to, then perhaps you could have a look at that, and that should make things clearer for you, because that's what I'll be basing what I'm doing here on. So I generally start with 4 chains to make my centre loop. So I'll make a slip stitch and I'll work up those 4 chains. So there's my 4 chains, and I'm going to make a slip stitch into that first chain to make a little loop. And then I'm going to do 4 chains to start. Again, this is where it may vary from the pattern you were used to, but if you pop and check out my other tutorial, I explain a bit more about why I do that, but it's just to cinch up the corners. I find 4 chains works better than 5. If you prefer 5, you do 5, but this is what I prefer. So this part here is the trickiest part now, because we have to add in our contrast colour, our second contrast colour. So before I do my first stitch into the centre here, I want to get my second colour in place. So I've got the end here, and I'm just going to hold that behind my loop here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trap the end of the yarn tail of the cream yarn and the beginning part of the contrast colour yarn together under the first couple of stitches. You could just tie a knot and tie it on if you want to. If that's easier for you, just go ahead and tie those 2 together and do it that way, but I just generally tend to hold it in place while I get started. So to begin, I'm going to do a UK treble crochet into that centre hole there, and that's the US double crochet. Exactly the same stitch, we just call it a different thing. So you'd yarn over, you work through the loop, pull the yarn through, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So exactly the same as a double crochet in America, and a it's a treble crochet here. So there I've trapped that yarn between the stitch and the loop, and I'm going to go ahead and make another one of those stitches. So there we go, I've got my 2 stitches there. Now I'm going to make another stitch, but this is where the second colour is going to start to come in. So I'll begin the stitch in the same way. I yarn over, I go into the loop, I pull the yarn through, and I yarn over and pull through 2. So when I've got those 2 loops on the hook like that, that's where I stop, and I drop this cream yarn. Now for me, I've found that the neatest way to do it is when I'm changing yarn, is the yarn I'm dropping, I always drop to the front, and I always pick up the different colour from behind. I don't know if that's what works best for everyone or in every situation, but for me, for these squares, that seems to be the neatest way I've found. So that's what I'm explaining here, but again, if you find something else works for you, then by all means do something else. So to finish that stitch then, I'm going to finish it in this second contrast colour, and I'm just going to pull that through. So you can just see that colour from the front, but that stitch is completed now. So now I'm going to work in the contrast colour for a little bit, and I'm going to carry on trapping the yarn end, but also I'm going to be working over the main colour yarn as I go round. So I like to just do a little pull on this main colour just to make sure that stitch is pulled up nicely. Not a massive tug, but just a gentle pull to bring everything back together. And then I'm going to make the 2 chains for the corner. Now I'm going to continue making my UK treble stitches into the middle here. So I'll do 3 stitches into the middle for this next size. I'll try and come up a little bit closer for you here so you can see clearly. Yeah, so I've got one side in the main colour, one side in the contrast colour. I'm now going to carry on, so 2 chains in the corner and another 3 UK treble stitches, US double stitches. So I've done 2 stitches on this second side of the contrast colour, and now I'm going to go back and change colours again. So I'm going to start the stitch in the same way in the contrast colour. So I yarn over, pull through, and yarn over on 2. Then I'm going to drop this contrast colour, and again I'm going to just drop that to the front, and I'm going to pick up this main colour yarn from behind and carry on to finish that stitch. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through those 2, and again I'm just going to take the dropped colour and just give it a gentle tug to just bring that stitch into the alignment with the ones I've already made. So now I'm going to carry on in the main colour again with 2 chains for the corner, and then I'm back round to the beginning. So I've got one side here with 3 stitches, I've got 2 sides here in the contrast colour with 3 stitches, and this starting chain is counting as my 1 stitch on this 3rd side, so I just need to do 2 more to complete it. So 1 and 2. And then I will make a slip stitch into my 3rd chain. Again, if this pattern does seem a little different to you're used to, and you want to check out the way I normally make my squares and just have a go in one colour to get the hang of those, then please do. Or if this pattern really doesn't suit you, I'm sure there are many other 2 colour square tutorials available that might suit the pattern you are more used to using. So I've made my slip stitch, so that completes my round. So let's carry on and make another round. So I like to do a chain into that corner to start. So I'll slip stitch into the corner to start. So I've done a slip stitch, and now we're going to bring the contrast colour up. So it's down below in the centre loop at the minute. We want to bring it up to the height of this round. So I just take the yarn, get the ends out the way now. I'm just going to let the ends hang down. And I'm just going to put it between the hook and the yarn there. So it's sitting along these stitches, ready to be worked over. So I'll just show you that again. So that it's at the back there. I've just picked it up and I'm literally putting it between the hook and the yarn. So it's sitting on top there, ready to be worked over. And then as I make these next chains, it's going to trap that yarn in there and keep it nicely in place. So I'll chain 4 to start again. And then I will do 2 stitches into the corner space. And it's worked over that yarn. And just again, I just give that an ever so gentle little pull to get that yarn up. So you will see that contrast colour coming up the back a little bit. And then I will change the colour on the second stitch. So I'll begin in the main colour as we did below until we get to that stage where we've got 2 loops on the hook. Then I'll bring that cream yarn to the front, pick up my contrast colour and just finish the stitch in the contrast colour. So there we are, ready to work the 2 sides of the contrast colour. So so if you can see, there's kind of a little gap in there. So that's why I like to just give that other colour just a little bit of a pull to snug it, make it nice and snug and tight again. And then I carry on working in the contrast colour. So there we go, we're back round to the corner where we want to make the change. So first stitch to go into the corner space in the normal way. And then the second stitch, I'll start as I normally would until I've got 2 loops left on the hook. Then I'll bring my contrast colour to the front and I'll pick up the main colour again and I'll finish the stitch like that. So there we're ready to complete the round in the main colour. So I'll just do that little tug to snug the colours up, and then my starting chain counts as a stitch here, so I only need to do 1 more stitch into this corner. So I do like that, and then a slip stitch into the 3rd chain, and then I'm ready to start my next row. So I'll slip stitch into the space, and then I'll just bring that contrast colour up again by just literally grabbing it and just pulling it over between the hook and the yarn, so it just sits between and can get nicely trapped there. So I'll do 1 more row round, and that's how I make the 2 colour squares. And in part 2 I'll show you how I join all the squares together to make my star blocks. So hopefully I'll see you there. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, if you could give me a thumbs up on YouTube, and if you'd like to subscribe for more content. I have podcasts, quiet moment vlogs, and sometimes more tutorials. Thanks for watching. Bye!